Hello everyone, welcome to the Lightning Ball channel. If you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, please do so and activate the notification bell. Your support fuels my continued efforts. Starting with this episode, we will start to talk about the final major battle in the TenSura story, the Tenma Great War. During the Empire War, the birth of Mana Seal catalyzed Rimuru's evolution into a true dragon, significantly enhancing his skills. Under Seal's covert guidance, the Monster Federation's executives also made substantial advancements in strength, with the number of super-awakened individuals nearing 20. At this point, the Monster Federation could be considered the strongest power in the Central World. Thus, under Rimuru's leadership, the Monster Federation comprehensively defeated the Empire, concluding the millennia-spanning game between Demon Lord Gi and Emperor Rudra. However, the flame of conflict remained undiminished even after the game's end. Manus Michael and Spectre Lord Feldway had no intention of surrendering after their supposed defeat. More accurately, they had already accomplished their goals in the shadows. Thus, the global-scale conflict, the Tenma Great War, commenced. In this episode, we delve into the betrayal of the angels and the prelude to Walpurgis. Let's get started. Previously, a friend in comment inquired about Milim's whereabouts during the entirety of the Empire War. As fierce battles unfolded between Rimuru's faction and the Eastern Empire, within the Beast Kingdom Eurazania, atop the under-construction colossal Sky Castle, Milim found herself confronting an uninvited guest, with her subordinate Midri standing guard behind her. Milim, after dispatching her subordinates, Beast King Carrion and Sky Queen Frey, to assist Worgen Nation, did not personally join the battle. The paramount reason for her decision was the defense of her own kingdom. If the Eastern Empire initiated war, her nation was also likely to be on their path of invasion. Moreover, if Milim were to engage directly, it would necessitate acting against humans, which fundamentally contradicted her wishes. Looking back, Milim's choice to remain within her country proved astutely correct. Milim demanded to know the purpose of the visit from the individual before her. This visitor was none other than Obera, one of the 3 mystic admirals under Feldway. Previous stories had already introduced the other 2 admirals, Zelario and Cornu. Unexpectedly, Obera disarmed her mythic-grade weapons, knelt down, and began to introduce herself to Milim, whom she addressed as the Dragon Princess. Obera revealed herself as one of the 7 angels of origin and a devout follower of the creator god, Veldanava. As Milim gazed into Obera's clear eyes, sparkling like stars, her initial anticipation for a grand battle dissipated into confusion due to the unexpected demeanor. Milim had never met Obera before. Obera, along with Feldway, Zelario, and Cornu, had been dispatched to Otherworld to monitor evil god Ivaraj even before Milim was born. Obera, with a smile, apologized for her belated introduction. Naturally, this made Milim even more perplexed about Obera's intentions if not to engage in battle. Observing Milim's confusion, Obera clarified she came to pay respects to the Dragon Princess and to offer her counsel. Obera, with her beautiful face lifted, gazed at Milim with palpable tension. After reintroducing themselves, Obera elaborated on the current situation. When Milim learned that Scorched Dragon Velgrine had fallen into the hands of Michael and Feldway, she immediately wanted to rush to Rimuru's aid, but Obera stopped her, indicating it was already too late for Milim to intervene. This caused Milim's agitation to surge, as she furiously demanded why Obera had not informed her sooner. Obera bowed deeply, admitting she would not seek excuses. In truth, she was still under Spectre Lord Feldway, primarily tasked with guarding Spooky Palace. Her decision to meet Milim during Feldway's absence was an act of grave betrayal. Obera believed that by confessing this, even Milim would forgive her. However, Obera felt ashamed for not living up to Milim's expectations, considering it a disgrace. Seeing Obera like this, Milim's anger subsided. She admitted that perhaps she had expected too much, appreciating Obera's effort to come and share the information. Obera, bowing respectfully, felt validated by Milim's understanding. Milim convinced that Obera hadn't spoken any falsehoods. Indeed, with Milim's skill, dragon eyes, she could discern any deceit. Meanwhile, Milim also assessed that Rimuru, despite his casual demeanor, was actually very cautious. Milim trusted that regardless of the situation, Rimuru could handle it. She then stated that since Obera was not an enemy, she must not act against Rimuru. Obera nodded, acknowledging that she was outwardly still Feldway's subordinate and could not act independently. She considered her best strategy to be continuing to earn Feldway's trust but sought Milim's opinion on the matter. Although Obera mentioned this, she also indicated she could defect at any moment if Milim disagreed with her plan. Milim detected no deceit in Obera's words but remained curious about her motives. When asked, Obera looked up, her eyes shimmering like stars, a resolve unmarred by regret shining through. Feldway's ambition to resurrect Star King Dragon Veldanava was deemed arrogant by Obera. She argued that as a divine being, Veldanava-sama needed no one's help to return, suggesting if he hadn't, it was by his own divine will. Imposing other will upon a deity was presumptuous. Rather than reviving Veldanava, Obera believed elevating his daughter, Milim, as the new sovereign was more appropriate. Milim was delighted by the notion of Obera wanting to ally with her. Obera humbly stated she wouldn't dare entertain such proud thoughts given her lowly status. She wished to serve Milim as a mere tool, finding supreme joy in being of service. Obera's attitude was reminiscent of Diablo's devotion to Rimuru. Obera declared her allegiance not as a betrayal of Feldway, but as a conviction that Feldway was the true traitor against Veldanava-sama's will. She voiced her belief that Veldanava-sama's will was for Milim, his daughter, to live in happiness, and she vowed to spare no enemy that threatened Milim, indicating Feldway had indeed crossed such a line. Yet, Obera approached the situation with wisdom, leaving the decision to act in Milim's hands. If Milim wished for her to take action, she would do so without hesitation, otherwise, she would remain a passive player in the unfolding events. Milim was delighted that Obera was willing to become her subordinate, and with Midri at the helm, Milim's team now had its own counterpart to Rimuru's Big Four. Milim thought she must boast to Rimuru about this, and couldn't help but smile at the thought. She had always been envious of Rimuru's Big Four, so she decided to refer to Obera, Midri, Carrion, and Frey in this manner. Of course, as readers, we're aware that Rimuru's ranks have expanded to include the 12 Guardian Lords, putting Rimuru far ahead in terms of developing his subordinates. And so, Obera joined Milim's ranks. Following this alliance, Obera detailed her situation and responsibilities, particularly her assignment in the Otherworld where she was tasked with confronting cryptids and keeping a vigilant eye on the evil god Ivaraj. The three mystical admirals, consisting of Zelario, Obera, and Cornu, each bore distinct duties, Cornu with the invasion of other dimensions, Zelario focusing on the insected menace, and Obera on surveillance on Cryptos and Ivaraj. The cessation of hostilities between Spectre Lord Feldway and Insect Lord Zelenus, brokered by Manus Michael, had allowed Zelario a degree of operational freedom. Yet, Obera's own mobility was constrained by the ongoing difficulty in managing Ivaraj's containment, emphasizing the critical nature of her role to prevent any potential incursion by Ivaraj into their world. Acknowledging the gravity of Obera's mission, Milim expressed her determination to support Obera's continued vigilance, highlighting the collaborative spirit uniting them against their shared threats. The only remaining question pertained to Feldway's schemes. Obera disclosed that Feldway, originally tasked by Veldanava with monitoring Ivaraj, had forsaken his duty in pursuit of reviving Veldanava. Feldway was now zealously working to expand the underworld gates, intending to unleash both phantoms and insectids upon the central world. Milim was taken aback upon learning this. If the underworld gates remained open, there was a real risk of Ivaraj being released. Obera admitted she had once confronted Feldway about his obsession, only to find that he had descended into madness. Feldway was so fixated on resurrecting Veldanava-sama that he was willing to destroy the world itself. Driven by a deep hatred for the world that took Veldanava from him, Feldway viewed Ivaraj's potential to wreak havoc not as a threat, but rather as aligned with his own destructive desires. Milim came to understand that Feldway intended to cast the hot potato Ivaraj onto the demon lords. This realization only added to her irritation, Her plans to enjoy time with Rimuru had already been delayed by the war with the Eastern Empire, and now another problem had emerged, souring her mood further. She concluded that there was no solution other than to thoroughly beat Feldway. Midori concurred, and both were itching for a confrontation with Feldway. It was at this moment that Obera received shared intelligence from Feldway and the three mystic admirals. According to the intelligence, Emperor Rudra, or rather Manus Michael, had absorbed Veldrein's dragon factor but was thwarted by Demon Lord Rimuru at the last moment, deciding to postpone the final battle. This news, especially to Milim, brought a moment of calm. Obera suggested that with the war over and Rimuru safe, and Feldway retreating to his stronghold, it was too early to act. The best course of action was to share intelligence with Rimuru and collaborate on a strategy. Milim agreed, instructing Obera to continue monitoring Feldway and to communicate via magical means until further orders. With that, the meeting between Milim and Obera concluded, and Obera returned to Spooky Palace, leaving Milim and Midori alone with their worries about the looming Great War. The perspective shifts to Rimuru, located behind primordial Blue Rain's transfer gate, in a world covered with ice and snow. Xian and Diablo followed Rimuru and Rain through the bitterly cold lands into Guy's castle. Unlike usual, half of the ancient castle lay in ruins, making it immediately apparent what had transpired. Guy greeted everyone first, indicating that Milim and de Gruel were also on their way, and the Walpurgis would begin once everyone had arrived. Rimuru looked around the venue to see Luminous and Leon already seated, exchanging greetings, after which Rimuru also took a seat. At that moment, Ramorous and Storm Dragon Veldora arrived at the scene. Luminous instinctively grimaced at the sight of Veldora, muttering something about the evil dragon. Veldora, brimming with excitement and ignoring Luminous' remark, carried on talking to himself. He mentioned that he had heard it was an important meeting and had wanted to accompany Rimuru but had missed the chance, so he hurriedly called Ramorous to join him. Rain, having neglected to notice Ramorous in the urgency of receiving Rimuru, presented Veldora with an opportunity to find Ramorous and join the Walpurgis banquet under the guise of being Ramorous' attendant. Ramorous, boasting such a powerful companion, immediately swelled with pride, declaring that having Veldora was like having wings added to a tiger, bringing formidable support to everyone present. She suggested that the attendees should be thankful to her. Ramorous and Veldora could very well be described as an amusingly dynamic duo. The atmosphere became lively with the arrival of Ramorous and Veldora. The next demon lord to arrive was Dragon Princess Milim, accompanied by her retainers Carrion and Frey. In a previous story, Carrion and Frey had absorbed enough souls while aiding Rimuru in the battle against the Empire, successfully awakening as true demon lords and significantly increasing their power. Guy immediately noticed the change in them. In front of Guy, Frey started to praise Milim, suggesting everything that had happened was part of Milim's plan, aiming to use the war as an opportunity to enhance her and Carrion's strength. Carrion joined in the praise, stating that serving Milim was a visionary decision. Guy nodded in approval upon hearing this, turning his attention to Milim. However, Milim was taken aback, clueless about any strategy they mentioned. Carrion added that there was no need for Milim to be modest or to hide their intentions, arguing that if he and Frey remained weak, they would not only be unable to assist Milim but could also potentially become liabilities in battle, hence Milim provided them with the opportunity to train and grow. Frey echoed this sentiment, suggesting that achieving the world Rimuru-sama envisioned might make it difficult to collect the souls needed for awakening in the future, making this their last chance, and thanked Milim for the opportunity. Hearing these praises, Milim blushed. Although she wasn't entirely sure of her own intentions, her genuine desire for Carrion and Frey to grow was evident. Milim's subordinates, following Diablo's example, collectively praised their lord. Rimuru also smiled, inclined to accept this viewpoint. However, there was another matter that caught Rimuru's attention during the conversation. Rimuru mentioned that Frey need not use formal language with him, suggesting she could just call him Rimuru. Yet Frey resolutely refused, insisting on using honorifics for Rimuru, citing that since Rimuru-sama and Milim were close friends, it was only right to maintain a respectful tone. In fact, Frey's demeanor towards Milim was strict, never employing honorifics, but she chose to do so with Rimuru. Frey then responded that Rimuru-sama continued to call her Miss Frey, a formality she felt could also be dropped. Thus, Rimuru's attempt to lighten the mood was deftly countered. Truthfully, although it was Rimuru who first suggested dropping the formalities, facing a supreme beauty like Frey, Rimuru found it somewhat challenging to address his casually. It was that typical reaction of boys feeling nervous in the presence of beautiful women. Milim was more like a child, and Luminous a beautiful young-looking, so interacting with them didn't feel burdensome. Similarly, dealing with someone like Xian, who was just physically mature, posed no issue for Rimuru. The problem arose when facing complete beauties like Frey or Velgrind, under whose aura Rimuru would become timid. Guy, with his keen perception, joyfully noted that Rimuru seemed to struggle with dealing with mature beauties. Seeing Rimuru fall silent, Guy playfully suggested that next time he would transform into a mature beauty and then ask Rimuru for help. Rimuru, looking exasperated, responded that knowing it was Guy, he wouldn't feel any pressure at all, accidentally voicing his inner thoughts. Xian, not to be outdone, pointed out that Rimuru-sama already had a beauty like herself as a secretary. Diablo, taking things even more seriously, declared it utterly delusional for Guy to think of seducing Rimuru-sama, and as for transforming into a woman, he assured that if Rimuru-sama desired it, he could quickly learn how to do so. Rimuru, left speechless by the turn of the conversation, quickly made it clear he expected no such thing and swiftly changed the subject. Internally, Rimuru sighed, regretting bringing these two troublemakers along, and wished he had brought Benimaru instead. Amidst the commotion, de Gruel arrived at the scene, his immense stature alone exuding an overwhelming presence despite not having any attendants with him. With a deep voice, de Gruel questioned why the scene had devolved into such a state, immediately grasping the severity of the situation upon his arrival. As his voice faded, the atmosphere among those present turned solemn, and even in the now quiet hall, the damage to the walls, including a significant hole, was evident. It was clear everyone was waiting for Guy to break the silence on the matter. It was at this moment that a new round of Walpurgis began. Guy, recognized as the most powerful demon lord, started off with a statement that seemingly contradicted his image, admitting that things had become somewhat troublesome and that he now needed everyone's assistance. This admission left everyone in attendance shocked. Alright, that's all for this video. The next episode promises to be an intriguing one as we will delve into the ultimate skills of each octogram demon lord, and we will talk about the nature of angelic and demonic skills, and the ultimate skills of the Virtue series and Sin series built upon them. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. Your support is greatly appreciated. See you in the next one.